Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video, we are going to learn about control flow statements in Python. Control flow means controlling how a program runs. Normally, Python runs code from top to bottom, one line at a time. But in real programs, we often need Python to make decisions, repeat tasks, skip something, or stop a loop. That is where control flow statements are used. Let's start with if statement. An if statement is used when we want Python to check a condition. If condition is true, Python runs code inside that block. If condition is false, Python skips it. For example, we may compare two numbers. If first number is smaller than second number, Python can print a message or show that value. One important thing in Python is indentation. Indentation means spaces before a line of code. In Python, indentation tells which lines belong inside if statement. So if condition is true, only indented code inside that block will run. Now let's talk about if, elif, and else. If statement checks first condition. Elif statement means else if. It checks another condition only if first condition is false. Else statement runs when none of earlier conditions are true. For example, if we compare two numbers, Python can check if one number is greater if both numbers are equal, or if or number is greater. So Python checks if first, and elif, and finally else if nothing matched. Next, let's talk about AND operator. AND operator is used when both conditions must be true. If both conditions are true, Python runs code inside if block. But if even one condition is false, whole condition becomes false. Now, let's discuss nested if statements. A nested if statement means an if statement inside another if statement. This is useful when one decision depends on another decision. For example, Python may first check if a number is greater than 10. If that is true, and it may check if number is also greater than 20. So Python only checks inner condition if outer condition is true. Next, we have pass statement. In Python, we cannot leave an if block empty. If we write an if statement and do not put anything inside it, Python gives an error. Pass statement fixes that. Pass means do nothing for now. It is usually used as a placeholder when we are planning code, but have not written logic yet. Now, let's move to while loop. A while loop repeats code as long as a condition is true. For example, if a variable starts at 1 and condition says to keep looping while variable is less than 6, Python keeps running loop until that condition becomes false. Inside loop, we usually update variable. This is very important. If we forget to update variable, condition may never become false, and loop can run forever. That is called an infinite loop. A while loop is useful when we do not know exactly how many times loop should run, but we know condition that controls it. Now, let's talk about while with else. In Python, a while loop can also have an else block. Else block runs after while loop finishes normally. So when condition becomes false, Python exits loop and runs else block. Next, let's talk about for loop. A for loop is used when we want to go through a sequence. A sequence can be a list, string, tuple, or range of numbers. For example, if we have a list of items, a for loop can go through each item one by one. A for loop is very useful when we already know collection of values we want to process. We can also loop through a string. In Python, a string is treated like a sequence of characters. So if we loop through a word, Python goes through each letter one by one. Now, let's talk about continue statement. Continue is used inside a loop. When Python reaches continue, it skips current loop cycle and moves to next one. For example, if we are looping through numbers and want to skip one specific number, we can use continue. Continue is also useful when filtering values. For example, if we are checking letters in a word and want to skip vowels, we can use continue whenever letter is a vowel. And Python only processes letters we want. Now, let's move to range function. Range function is used when we want to loop a specific number of times. By default, range starts from 0 and stops before ending number. This is important. Ending number is not included. So if ending value is 6, Python gives numbers from 0 to 5. Range can also have a starting number and an ending number. For example, if we start at 2 and stop at 6, Python gives 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, it stops before ending value. Range can also have a step value. Step value tells Python how much to increase each time. For example, if step is 5, Python jumps by 5 each time instead of increasing by 1. Now, let's talk about match case. Match case is used when we want to compare one value with multiple possible cases. It is similar to checking many if and elif conditions, but it can look cleaner. Python checks value and tries to match it with one of cases. If it finds a match, it runs that block. Can also be a default case. Default case runs if none of or cases match. Now, let's look at first practice example. Goal is to print even numbers between 1 and 100. Python loops through numbers and checks each number. If a number is divisible by 2, and it is even. So Python prints only even numbers. This is a good example of using a loop with an if condition. Now, let's talk about second practice example, which is a guessing game. In this program, is a target number. User keeps entering guesses. If user guesses correct number, Python prints a success message and stops loop. If guess is too high, Python tells user to aim lower. If guess is too low, it asks user to aim higher. This example combines input, while loop, if conditions, elif conditions, comparison operators, and break. Break statement is used to stop loop completely when correct answer is found. So to quickly recap, control flow helps us control how a Python program runs. If statements help Python make decisions. Elif checks another condition. Else runs when none of earlier conditions are true. While loops repeat code while a condition is true. For loops go through sequences. Continue skips current loop cycle. Break stops loop. Range helps us generate numbers for looping. And match case helps us compare one value with multiple possible options. That's basic idea of Python control flow statements. Thanks for watching, and in next video, we can continue with more Python practice examples.